All right, good afternoon, colleagues. To continue, I will present to you the model, the module, the sample module, which I've written on derivatives. So this is a module on finding derivatives using differentiation rules, which I intend to give to my students in differential calculus. So this is the title. So remember the components of the modules we discussed earlier. So there are 7 components. So this is the title. So clearly, when you look at the title, it says that it is about differentiation rules. So finding derivatives using differentiation rules as opposed to finding derivatives using the delta definition. So the next component is the introduction. So I explained here about the last lesson that the learners had. So the last lesson you had was about the definition of the derivative. So this is the next topic after the definition of the derivative. So differentiation rule. So I wrote here, you were taught. So that's one basic rule in module writing. It should be second person. It's as if you are talking to the learner. So again, you were taught that it is basically a change of function, blah, blah, blah. So you are very familiar with the use. So I somewhat recalled, I allowed the learners to recall the previous lesson. And then now in this module, so I am introducing what the module is about. You will learn differentiation rules which you can use to evaluate for the derivatives, without having to use the definition involving the ratio change. So why is this module important? Because it will make finding derivatives easier and faster. So what does the module contain? So the module contains lessons, basic differentiation rules, as well as definitions. So all topics. So this is a module with several topics. You can write a module with one topic that is easier. So what are the objectives? So I set 5 objectives. So this module contains lessons on the rules of finding the derivatives. At the end of the module, you must be able to. So this is a progression from the most simple learning outcome to the most complex. So the learner should be able to recognize differentiable functions, be familiar with differentiation rules involving trigonometric functions and inverses, exponential and logarithmic functions, hyperbolic functions and their inverses, recognize functions which involve the use of the chain rule. So in here, the learning outcome should be that the learner must be able to recognize functions, and be able to determine which differentiation rule is appropriate for that particular function. And the last objective is being able to find the derivative of a given function. And then the next component is the instruction to the learner, instruction to the user. So I mentioned here, this module is intended for students of differential calculus like you. So this is my target population. This module is intended for students enrolled in differential calculus. I explained here that the lessons are standalone coupled with easy to follow instructions. Before the lesson proper, you are required to take the pretest. Why? Just so you will have an idea of your baseline knowledge and prerequisites as regards the rules on finding the derivatives. I give instruction that the learners needs a quiet place to study, a clean notebook for note-taking, and solution writing. And, eto mahalaga to, a strong resolve to do this on his or her own. And then, let's start. So, I put happy emoticons there. So the pretest, there is an instruction. So the pretest, so that's the 4th component. Get a timer and set it to 30 minutes. Answer the following without I highlighted it, without consulting any reference. Again, the module is self-contained. So the learners do not need books, internet, etc. I mentioned that answers are on page 4, but the learner should refrain from looking at them unless he or she is done with the test. So I gave the instruction differentiate each of the functions below. So the idea is for the learners to recognize the functions and what type of functions is this, and then type of functions are this, and then what differentiation rules, no? And then this one is important. Answer to pretest. There should be an instruction, no, how they will score their answer. So I have here assign 1 point to every correct answer. Add all your points and compare to the scores below. So this is very important because as I mentioned earlier, the pretest is a diagnostic test, so that the learner would be able to determine how is he or she as regards the topic on differentiation rules. So if the learner got 15 correct answers, so all correct, so I commented here, remarkable. You are very knowledgeable about finding the derivatives. And you may browse the page of this module just for fun. For 13 to 14, good, you know quite well about finding the derivatives. You might want to flip the pages for one and a bit of review. If the score is 10 to 12, oh well, relax. You may find this module very useful as you decide to study about finding the derivatives at your own pace. And if the score is 9 or less than that, I said, do not fret. This module is really intended for you. Read every page and follow the instructions along the way. At the end is a post-test to measure your progress. And then I mentioned chill. So these are the answers. So there is no solution, just the answer. They will compare the answers to this. And then compare their scores to the table we had earlier. And then I have here a reminder. If your score shows you are remarkable on the rules of differentiation, so that means the learner was able to get 15 perfect scores, you can just flip the pages of this module for fun. Otherwise, you should find a conducive place for you to start the lesson proper. Enough examples are provided for you to study as well as an activity for you to work on. Finally, you also need to answer the post-test to find out if your ability to evaluate derivatives using differentiation rules has improved. Then I have here some pictures, and then I said, enjoy the module and have fun learning. So I'm trying to engage the learner. And then this is now the lesson proper. So I use the first and the last approach, which is an essay and providing learning material. So for the lesson proper, first is I mentioned that let us first have a review about some notation. So suppose you are taking the derivative. So it's like a physical classroom minus the physical contact. We usually say that we are taking the derivative. So modules are intended for learners who know how to read. Okay? So when we take derivative, blah, 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 and I have here remarks. So everything that I would have said had I met the class in a physical class, I put into writing. So that's basically what the module is. Lahat ng sasabihin ko sa klase, ayun, nilagay sa module. So I have here remarks. So the first two notations are read as blah, blah, blah. So you may see. Then let us discuss the following. So I now present the different rules. I give examples for each rule. I give remarks. So power rule, if n. Okay, so a bit challenging because for this, I need to use equation editor. So I need to insert equation and then go back to the normal text, which is quite tedious. So I have here example, no, for the rule. So notice that n equals 5. You need to bring it down, subtract 1 from 5 to eventually have 4 as the final exponent. So I'm trying to explain how to apply the power rule. So that the nxn to the minus 1. So notice that n equals 5. So and then I put it into writing. So that 5 times x raised to 5 minus 1 equals 5x raised to the 4. Then I did the same thing to all the rules. So I have so many rules discussed here. The product rule. Basically, I did the same thing, no, as if I'm talking to the learners. Okay, so the chain rule is the last rule. All right, so this is the lesson proper part, method of presentation. Okay, I think there are 10 rules here. I only have 10. I have used 10 minutes already. I only have 5 minutes. Okay, so there are so many rules followed by example for each rule. So the last one is the chain rule. Okay, I also gave examples. So as if talking to the learner, then we have, and then another example. So one strategy is to think of the given function as composed of an outside. So I explored another method of solving the problem. Okay. And then again, I gave, I think, five examples for the chain rule. And then after that, after the lesson presentation, there is an activity where the students need to apply, no, what uh, what the lesson is about, what the module has taught the learner. So I asked them to differentiate, no, these following functions using appropriate rules. So this is uh, given from the easy function to the most complex one. So that the learner would be able to develop confidence, no, in proceeding to the next numbers. Okay. And then after that is the post-test. This is similar to the pre-test earlier. So it's very crucial, no? The timing is very crucial. It should not be given, the post-test should not be given right after the pre-test because the tendency is for the learners to just memorize the answer. So that's not acceptable and that's not encouraged. So I also have here an instruction. Get a timer and set it to 30 minutes. Answer the following without consulting the reference. Okay? Answer are on page. Okay, so mention the page. And then this is different to the and solution. There is a solution. So the difference between the answer key to the answers between pre-test and post-test is that in the pre-test I just give the answer without giving the solution, while in the post-test I give explanations and I give the solution rather. Okay, so that the learners will be able to follow. Okay, should their for example they committed mistakes, so what's the wrong concept, so they should be able to see that in the solution. Okay, so that's basically it. So we have the introduction, we have the title, introduction, we have the objectives, we have instruction to the users, we have the pre-test, the lesson proper, and the post-test. And also, I have here a comment, no, a remark, no. If after the post-test, the learner got a score of 11 and above, then he or she is ready for the next module. And then I mentioned the title of the next module, which the topic rather, which is about evaluating higher order derivatives. And then the last part is the references. We should cite our references. Okay, so that's basically uh, how to write a module. So an example of a module which I have written. I hope you are able to get something from the example and from the lecture on module writing. So thank you very much, and I hope that you will be inspired to write modules for your students, because now I think it's the most appropriate and welcome modality of learning instruction delivery. Thank you very much. see you for the question and answer part. Thank you.